WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. I'm wearing my State Fair gear here this week. It is Chicken Palooza. This is a wise conversation, but over in Catonsville, on the 3rd of July, not the 4th of July, they're having their annual hootenanny is what I would call it for Don Moeller. Get your chairs out in front of State Fair. We did stop there on the Crab Cake Tour. We're heading to Harford County to talk to Republicans. Barry Glassman will be with us on Friday up in Harford County. And then next week, we will move south to Stuart Pittman down in Anne Arundel County. I almost moved north last weekend. You know, I put some sort of flippant thing online about going to Buffalo. Man, these Buffalo people, they're all sensitive, you know. I fell in love in Buffalo once. My dear friend Mike Rosigliano. The only thing I can think about Buffalo is beating our ass in January, knocking us out of the playoffs. That probably would have kept me out of Buffalo. Todd Radom is an author, a designer, an artist, and he showed up on my timeline over the weekend. And he's probably wondering, like, why me? Why are you calling me to come on the Baltimore show in the middle of July when the woeful Orioles are in last place? Todd, it's always great to visit with you, man, talking art and logos. One of the reasons I'm calling is because the Padres are finally wearing good uniforms again. I think we can both agree with that, right?
Nestor, it's good to see you again. It's been a while. Thank you for having me on. But hey, everybody cares about the optics, right? But and always have, actually. But we're here to talk about Buffalo. So,
well, here's what happened. Yeah. 2 weeks ago, Luke and I are doing radio, as we're always doing, and I'm always trying to keep up with what's going on. And I went up on the website, and I saw that they're playing the Blue Jays in Buffalo. And, you know, I'm a stadium guy, right? That's how we met, right? I mean, I did 30 ballparks in 30 days back in 15. Still haven't been to the new Atlanta Stadium yet. But anywhere there's a game, I like to go and see it played. So I'm disappointed that I didn't get to a Bears game in Champaign a number of years ago. I never saw the Panthers play in Clemson, but I have seen, like, the Oilers play at the Liberty Bowl, you know, in football. So collecting stadia is something that I like, even stadia that are pretty much on dumpster fire at this point. But playing Major League Baseball in Buffalo, I said to Luke, I wouldn't, you know, like ordinarily say, let's go to Buffalo, but this might be kind of fun to go up and check it out. And then my better demons took over, and I said, you know, I'm doing this Crab Cake Tour in August. I've been to Buffalo a million times. I've been to Rich Stadium, Pilot Field, whatever the name is. I was there. I saw Junior Noboa play back in 1989 there against the Indianapolis Racers or whatever the hell they were at the time. So I've been there. But Major League Baseball in a minor league park, you collect these little experiences too, don't you, from what I saw?
Absolutely, Nestor. And that's the thing. So I went to Buffalo this past weekend. We'll talk about it. But I've seen MLB games in 53 different stadiums. Okay. So that tells you two things. Number one, we are of a like mind when it comes to this kind of thing. And it also speaks to my veteran longevity status. You're old. Yeah, that's it. And I wear it like a badge of honor. But here's the scoop. I have a couple of dear friends from college days. And back in the late 80s, we would go on these baseball trips, right?
I did the same thing. Summer 89. Me and Russ DeLynn went to see Comiskey Park before they ripped it down. I found my pictures recently.
Yep, that's it. And so you know, and for your listeners who might be a little less seasoned than you and I, this was not an easy thing to do. There was literally no internet. So you'd have to buy the USA Today and look at the schedule or whatever it was, Baltimore Sun in your case, and get your Rand McNally Road Atlas.
And you had to mail away for tickets ahead of time, because I did that in '83 with the Cardinals and the Royals. You know, the tickets come in a little envelope, and you get a schedule in there. And I'm like,
well, we lived dangerously. Fan. We didn't plan anything out other than we're gonna rent a car and drive from New York. And you know, if we leave at X hour. You know, we put a cooler of beer in the car, maybe a bag of bologna sandwiches. We figured, okay, this weekend we can see games in Chicago, Detroit, and Toronto.
And go to the Hall of Fame, too. Probably.
And go to the Hall of Fame. Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, sometimes these trips were really stupid. Like the weekend we drove from New York City to Kansas City and back and returned the rental car. And the woman at the rental car place said, you know, you put 2,400 miles on this car in 3 days. What did you do? We went to Kansas City for a baseball game. Yeah, right. But
Todd,
anyway.
I did 30 ballparks in 30 days in 15. I'm clearly crazy, but more than that, I found someone who did it driving. Now that, like, I don't know how you get from Denver to Seattle, because I thought about it. I thought about having a Madden cruiser. I thought about how to do it in different ways. I wound up flying it. I wound up surviving it. I wound up doing it. I wound up not having a rain out. I mean, like, all of these things that could happen that make me crazy. But like, I saw somebody that tried to drive that did 30 games in 30. They drove. It's crazy.
That is a commitment. But anyway, so the story
got
with
to
the
one
Buffalo
of them in the 7th inning.
The story with the Buffalo trip is that a couple of these guys that I did this with years ago, who we've always kept in touch, we've never not been in touch, but as a post-pandemic, we're back. We planned out I said, we've got to go to Buffalo because it's just so damn weird seeing a major league game in a minor league stadium. And one of these guys, the last time we were together, he's from upstate New York. Last time the three of us were together, we're in tuxes for his wedding 25 years ago.
In Buffalo.
In Buffalo. So all roads led to Buffalo. Not a ridiculous trip. So anyway, it was a fascinating experience. And I will say, for the purposes of the Baltimore part of the conversation, Orioles Nation, or, you know, what are you? Orioles Nation? Is that what we would call it?
I don't know what we are.
Oriole fans, orange-clad enthusiasts. We're out in numbers, Nestor, because
Rochester. There's a whole thing
right.
in that part of the world with the Orioles, right?
It makes sense, absolutely. And I think a couple of things were in play. Number one, it was a sparsely attended game, which surprised me to some extent.
I thought the Buffalo people would like, hey man, the Blue Jays are playing down the street. This ain't happening next year. I'll give them $30 tonight and go to the game. Like,
well, that's where you have fallen short, my friend, because that $30 was far more than $30. They are charging, it's dynamic pricing.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Right.
Hold on a second. Because I wonder why nobody was there. And I thought, did they do what Leonsis did when he brought that shitty NBA basketball game in here and tried to charge people $150 to see the New Orleans Pelicans that didn't even have a name? Like, seriously? Like, they're doing that in Buffalo?
They are doing that in Buffalo. And
seriously, what does it cost to get in?
So I believe the game that we went to, the range was somewhere between $60 on the low and $125 on the high. Okay.
So it's $60 to sit in the bleachers?
Well, you know,
that's why it's empty. I mean, that explains all you need to. I mean, the Orioles are empty, and I thought of going a couple weeks ago, and it was going to cost in the low 20s. And it just didn't feel like a $50, like me and my wife walking up there and giving Angelo's $50. I haven't given Angelo's $50 in 16 years, but like to move on that, right? I mean, I'll get Todd, full disclosure this week, I'm going to New York to see Springsteen tomorrow.
Nice.
And we're there a day early. It's going to be 98 degrees. Okay. Yep. And I saw that the Angels were in town and I want to see Ohtani pitch. So on Sunday, there was no listing. On Monday, he's pitching Wednesday night. And I'm like, I've been to Yankee Stadium. I don't really like the new Yankee Stadium. I like the Bronx. I like the pizza. I like the water ice. But the stadium, to me, give me the old stadium back. Talking about the 53 places you've been. This one is it's a Tom Petty song. Take back Yankee Stadium. You know,
it's very mall-like. Let's just put it that way.
Very much so. Yeah. So it's $11 to see Ohtani pitch in the Bronx on Wednesday night if you can bear 98 degrees.
Right.
And same day, literally tonight, we're taping this on a Tuesday morning. One of my dear friends is in LA with her children, and she had an incident where she was hit with a line drive by Mookie Betts and had some really awful thing happen. And she's in LA, and I've like hooked her and her family up with like kind of a special cool thing. And I wanted to see how much tickets were at Dodger Stadium. Dodgers, Giants, surprise Giants first place. It's $48 on StubHub for the cheapest ticket on a Tuesday night. So it really gives you the scope of like, that's a demand issue for Dodgers Giants, right? Demand for Orioles is if they open it for free, people wouldn't come, literally. And then there's trying to scalp the poor people of Western New York because they brought a team in for 8 weeks or whatever it's going to be. Like I didn't know that. I was wondering like, why aren't there more people there? And then they're charging Rolling Stones prices, you know?
Yeah, you could take it one step further and just imagine that a beer that would cost $7 is now $12, I guess, up there. And listen, I'm a native New Yorker. I'm used to paying high prices for everything. But I believe that the Yankee series was well attended. But to your point, supply and demand meet. It's not a huge place. And to get back to the experience itself, it was
Of
fascinating.
course, absolutely.
Yeah, and now I'm gonna give you I'll give you a question, which I suspect you know because you know a lot of things. What was the first retro designed stadium in North America?
Retro designed. It
Retro
might have been
design.
that one because our stadium was built off of that. The seats are when I
That's
saw
right.
the on the like somebody was on the fungo on the warm up deck. I saw the seats and I remembered sitting in them
Yeah.
30 years ago. And I remember when Camden Yards was built. I was on the radio when Camden Yards was built.
Yeah.
It was this HOK and it was the same design, same seats, the same green seats, the whole deal. The Texas Stadium, the other one, the one that they've already
Yes.
decided to not
Well,
play in.
that was a couple years later, but of course, famously, Janet Marie Smith and Larry Lucchino combined to build beautiful Oriole Park at Camden Yards. But what was then called Pilot Field in Buffalo, now Salem Field,
Salem,
was
is that what it's called? Okay, I didn't even know what they call it.
Sahlen. It is a local brand of hot dog, which is very on brand for Buffalo.
Okay,
right?
fair enough.
But retro, right downtown, great in the sense that you can walk to everything. I love that kind of experience.
Well, I told my
Personally,
wife it was very scalable. When I went there in
yes.
1989,
Yep.
Camden Yards was being built. I fell in love in Buffalo on New Year's Eve '88. It was an Oilers game. It involved Resigliano. It was a long story, but I spent a lot of time in Buffalo in '89 and '90. I went to the ballpark a couple times, but it was so obvious that like they could stick a second deck on it. Like the
That's
one in
right.
Nashville is like that right now.
Yep.
And you could stick a second deck on it and say, bring us your Oakland A's or bring us your expansion team. And I miss it before Colorado, before Arizona, before
That's right.
Florida, before Tampa. They wanted to be in the game at that time.
And they were very much in the mix for an expansion franchise. The two which were eventually awarded to Miami and to Denver. Buffalo was a finalist for a Major League Baseball team, which is kind of hard to believe, but it's a while ago. And yeah, so they built this ballpark, to your point, to be scalable, expandable. And okay, it took a little while, and it's only going to be 40 games or so with people in the stands, but they got a Major League Baseball team, even if for a while. And one thing I want to mention, Nestor, because I think it was really just, stunningly amazing to me as a visual guy, having been to all these ballparks, having worked in sports, essentially marketing design for 30 years, they really made it look like a Blue Jays stadium. The signage and the, it looked
Wasn't
like
it
a
you
home
that leaked out 8 months ago or last year a Buffalo Blue Jays logo?
Yeah,
Did you do that?
That was a theoretical kind of fun exercise.
I
yes.
retweeted that. I retweeted it and I saw it because there was a question. Did you do a Tampa one too or something? Because they were going to play in Tampa at one point.
I did. If I'm recalling this correctly, I did Baltimore with a crab cake and Pittsburgh, I believe. And yes, when that was a great mystery where they were going to wind up. But the funny thing, Nestor, is that the logo that I kind of tweeted out because it was just kind of a fun visual exercise is now on the body of about every third person in the city of Buffalo in bootleg form. So, I should be getting residuals, but it's not my art.
So the Buffalo Blue Jays logo was yours. Todd Radom is here. He is an artist, a designer. I told my wife when I invited you on, I thought you like really created a logo or two in Major League. I said to her, I think he created the new Seahawks logo or something, whatever. But you've done that kind of work, right?
Yeah, that's right. So, I've done everything from Super Bowl logos to All-Star Game logos in various places. The Washington All-Star Game in 2018, that design was mine. I did the Angels, what they wear currently. I did the Washington Nationals look when they first moved from Montreal to DC. I do all of the graphics, everything visual for Ice Cube for his 3-on-3 Big Three basketball league.
Nice.
Yeah. And so, I've worked in professional sports, like I said, for a long, long time. So there you go.
So we become Facebook friends.
Yeah.
Last week, I decided to not go to Buffalo, right? Like I said to Luke, I got Springsteen tickets now. I'm doing this I'm going to be 30 crab cakes in 30 days in August for my 30th anniversary. So I'm doing a statewide tour, a Maryland tour, and keeping it local. I've been all over the world. We're going to be in Vegas with the Ravens. We're going to be in Chicago, Detroit. So there's going to be some travel. And I just decided I didn't need Buffalo for last place baseball, even though my dear friend Mike Sprata lives up there in Depew and Cheektowaga and all that stuff. So I didn't go. And I was going to hit Murphy and some Buffalo Bills people because I had them on 6 months ago because we played them and got eliminated, sadly. Dark day for Lamar Jackson and everyone in the Purple Nation. But I saw you on the timeline and I saw you up there banging around, and I said, you know what? I need to get like a real experience of the whole vibe. Baseball and old school baseball, and I get into this with everyone. When I watch it now, the game has changed so dramatically with shifts, so dramatically with speed, so dramatically with home runs and strikeouts, and there's no shame in striking out. Do you feel that when you're sitting in a somnambulant, half-empty minor league ballpark watching really, really bad baseball, which was what it felt like most of the weekend?
Yeah, I do. I absolutely do. I grew up at a time, as you did, when games were nice and snappy. A 2.5 hour crisply played game where the ball is put in play more than once every 16 minutes. Might be exaggerating a little bit there. That moves things along. And I, as a baseball guy, in a lot of ways, I worry about the future of the game because I'll tell you, Nestor, I remember sitting at a White Sox game. I think it was 2 seasons ago, maybe 3. Beautiful seats right behind home plate. Gorgeous summer night in Chicago. Good team. I think it was the Astros visiting at that time.
Most importantly, did you have any elote? Because that's the greatest.
No.
Oh my God, the elote, the corn. You got to get the street corn at Comiskey.
Always. No, I did not.
My cousin's got a statue there. The name's on the wall. I know some things about South Chicago. You got to get the elotes for sure.
Wow.
Next time. Yeah,
all right.
Absolutely.
I'm going to remember that. But
they serve them on a little cart. It's a cart at the top of the section when you go up. It's not like in the main. They're yellow. It's big corn. You'll love it.
You can't miss that. I mean,
no, man. Little crema on there, little lime, little red pepper, little cheese, little butter.
I can go with that. That sounds awesome, actually.
Perfect.
But yeah, there was a 12-year-old kid sitting in front of me with his face in his phone, and he's got the beautiful view, star power with the visiting team. So yeah, it is. Baseball is going to have some issues if it's not already. And yes, so I'm like that. But we had friends and a couple of beers, and it worked out okay.
I bet it did. And the fact that baseball still puts you and your buddies together and brings people. I wish I had that in Baltimore. We don't have it so much. I mean, Todd, I live here. I live 2 blocks from the ballpark.
Yeah.
No one ever even calls me and says, hey, I'll be at the game tonight. Do you want to come over? Hey, I got an extra ticket.
I would go to a game with you, Nestor. I know you're not welcome in there, but
Yeah, I'm not welcome, but it's just like it's not worth seeing right now. I mean, I'm almost Protestant on this thing here, protesting, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I'm almost sort of like until you put a major league caliber team on the field, no one deserves this, as a fan base. And then there's the Bowie experience. So we do have that, right? Like everybody I know is going down to see Grayson Rodriguez pitch. They've seen Rutschman. So there is that sort of future. So I took last summer off. I can take this summer. I'm going to a Nats Padres game later on this summer because the Padres have made it interesting. But baseball itself is having, I think, a good year if you're not in Baltimore, Arizona, or wherever. I mean, the fact that the Giants are good, you mentioned the White Sox being good, this whole Astro cheating thing sort of looms as there's a real bad guy, in the room, and the Dodgers with all the money and the Padres flipping bats. I mean,
well, and there you go. I saw Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and had great seats, but, we had great seats. So to see Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hit a home run, but more importantly, Nestor, to come back from the infield, into the dugout with a huge smile on his face, full of personality, flair for the game. Tatis, who you reference, I mean, Ohtani doing things that we've never seen before.
Things that are making me look on the internet for a ticket in New York when there's a million other things to do. And my wife and I are legitimately thinking about going to a baseball game. I live 2 blocks from here. I never think of going, you know what I mean? So my last name's Aparicio. I am winnable. They can bring me back in, but you're not bringing me back in with this caca when you're losing 13-0 and 9-0 and not putting major league talent. I mean, and then charging $60 if I happen to get in the car and drive to Buffalo because I want to add a stadium. I had to say to my wife, how badly do I want to add my 53rd stadium or whatever that number is? And not badly enough to give the Buffalo Blue Jays $200 to get in, literally, right?
No, understood. And again, part of what you're talking about, which again, being a well-seasoned human being at this point, remembering a time when the Orioles were not only relevant but dominant in the Oriole way, led the way. And it's funny, Nestor, one of my two buddies who I was with was talking about the '83 World Series, being a Phillies fan, huge Phillies fan, and talked about how much he loved those Phillies, even though they came up short against the Orioles. And, I said to him, geez, as kind of a Switzerland neutral observer in this conversation, I was like, that's the Orioles' last World Series championship, which for me is pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, I was there that night at the Vet. My dad almost got in a fight with half of South Philadelphia. It was lovely, but
very on brand.
Todd Radom is here. He is an artist and an author and a designer. We only have a few minutes left. I want to give you some oxygen just on design with sports. I always have Marty Conway, and we talk about the business of sports. I think all of us who love logos, who love jerseys. I mean, I've been involved with Hunt Auctions, auctioning off a whole bunch of my rock and roll stuff, and I look through and see these old jerseys from the 60s and 70s and think, man, I'd wear that. I wonder if that's made of wool. I wonder if that breeds, The modern part of all of this is teams are wearing their pajamas on some nights, right? All these throwbacks, all these military, all the pink, all the blue, all the Negro Leagues. I mean, all of these different things that come. I would think people like you are pretty busy putting these things together because nobody's wearing one jersey anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You look at different sports, and I think the first thing I would say, and I always say, is that baseball being a 162-game season, and if you do go to the World Series, you're going to play in 180 plus games. It is a sport that lends itself to introspection. And this is for a couple of reasons. Not only is the season so long, you have some opportunity here for individuality and expression, right? But it's also, let's face it, Nestor, a sedentary game let us compare this to the NBA, where teams play 80 plus games and, NBA teams now have no home or road designations in terms of their uniforms. And you see the Milwaukee Bucks, for instance, the other night, very close to the NBA finals, wearing blue for some reason. The Milwaukee Bucks are a green
the
team.
NBA, they've kind of lost me because I can't even identify the teams. None of the teams. Houston doesn't look like Akeem Olajuwon. Milwaukee doesn't look like Sidney Moncrief. I mean, I guess the Knicks sort of most nights look the same, or even the Celtics. But the Wizards don't even have their name, right? So when I put an NBA game on, it is not identifiable from the minute you see it.
Form and function always have to meet. And for those of us who are scrolling through our phones and maybe catching little bits and pieces of highlights and not knowing what two teams are playing on this small device, and not knowing where they are is not awesome. But to get back to the baseball part of it, it's a bigger picture. You can follow along a little bit. So, yeah, we've got a lot of different looks. And as you know, Nike took over the MLB contract from what had been Majestic, had manufactured the uniforms for many years. And Nike now, I believe, is going to impart basically what they did in basketball, the Oregon Duckization of professional sports.
Oh, I'm a Terps fan. I get it.
Right, exactly.
They're wearing their pajamas there every weekend. Sometimes they're yellow, sometimes they're red, sometimes they're black because we got to look tough. Never white because who would be the home team and there wouldn't be enough color there. So it may be gray, but not real gray, more of like a sky over Camden Yards kind of gray. Todd, I love having you on and talking about designs, but the most important thing is you went to Buffalo. Did you get wings? Did you have a good time?
Wings, had beef on wick, had some beer, went to the Washington Square dive bar near Nestor. It was a great time, and it's good to be, again, at least in the United States, it feels like we're back in business. It was good to be with friends, good to experience sports in person, and we're back in business, baby.
Buffalo, you can almost see Canada from there.
You can. I thought that from my hotel room, I could see Canada from my hotel room.
Well, Niagara Falls is always good for a cheap T-shirt as well. But hey, man, keep the logos coming, keep the sense of humor coming, keep the sports travel coming, and by all means, if you come to Baltimore, I won't promise you that I'm going to go to a game, but I promise you will not eat a tourist crab cake. Okay?
I will. I'd be down for that. A couple of beers. I might even have to plan a trip around this, Nestor, because it's not too far a trip.
All right. Well, make sure the Orioles aren't in last place, which leaves you out for this summer, but better times are ahead. Come see Adley Rutschman. He's going to the Hall of Fame.
There you go. I love it.
He's Mauer with power. He's bench with, he's all of that. So Todd Radom is, you can find him out creating the world's, and I'm reading right off of his LinkedIn, creating the world's most visible sports brands for 30 years. You wonder how we get experts around here. We find them on our Facebook page in Buffalo, hanging out at Blue Jays Orioles games. He does design and brand consultation. He's a great guest and a big sports fan, and I owe him a beer and a crab cake. You can find me usually over at State Fair. We're hoping to re-engage a little bit with some more live events. We're going to be doing that next week down in Anne Arundel County with Stuart Pittman. Later on this week, we're going to be up in Harford County at Barrett's. John Barrett and the Barrett family, very, very kind to my wife during her battle. I'm repaying that kindness with his delicious crab cake on Friday with Harford County Executive Barry Glassman. That'll happen Friday at 2 at Barrett's. I am Nestor. You can find me anywhere the internet takes you. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, or nasty at WNST.net. We are WNST AM 1570, Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking baseball and Baltimore positive.